The putrid stench of rot clung to my clothes like an unwelcome spectre, the remnants of our battle with Lazarus lingering in the sewer air as he garbled from his severed head.
I am a mighty servant of Mother, fleeting mortals, and you will...
You will be my pet and alarm clock, an ingredient for potions and concoctions now. When the sun glimmers outside, it will burn your skull, and your scream will be my morning notice,"
said Marcus, acting like a cat playing with his food. Lazarus tried to retort, but he was stuffed inside his coat before it could. We decided to let local authorities know about ghouls in the sewers. My sword, Katrina, vibrated softly in my grip, her voice slipping into my mind like silk.
You hesitate, Banjo. Are you regretting your choices already?
I ignored her, shifting my focus to the guards standing in the dim torchlight of the sewer tunnel. Eliana had taken the lead in conversation, her silver armor gleaming under the flickering flames. She was all smiles, feigning ignorance when questioned about how we had survived against what should have been an impossible foe.
"You're all incredibly lucky,"
said Captain Gerald, his voice carrying an air of suspicion.
"Even trained men like us struggle with lesser ghouls."
Eliana tilted her head innocently.
Well, fortune favors the bold, Captain. And perhaps the undead were weaker than we expected, wounded from a previous fight.
Marcus snorted under his breath, his dark coat shifting as he adjusted his stance. Sir Thorn stood at ease, arms crossed over his chest, watching quietly. I, for one, remained silent. Words weren't my strong suit, and I wasn't about to risk saying something that might put us under more scrutiny. Gerald exchanged glances with his men before sighing.
"Either way, you've done this city a service. If you're still up for it, I'd like to offer more than just the standard pay for the rat job. Something tells me those sewers aren't as empty as they should be."
A glance passed between my companions. More money meant more risk, but it also meant more funding to silver our weapons and kill the beast of Galek. Eventually, we agreed, and the guards followed us deeper into the sewers, trusting us to lead them to the source of the undead scourge. Marcus, ever the tracker, led the way. His uncanny ability to sense death guided us through winding tunnels and foul-smelling corridors, until at last we stumbled upon a sight more sinister than any of us had expected. An underground harbor sprawled before us, dimly lit by eerie green lanterns. Dozens of ghouls scurried like workers, loading wooden crates onto a waiting ship. But what made my blood run cold was the storm giant standing at the center of it all, undead, hulking, and radiating malice. Then there were the captives. A shack at the far end of the cavern held men, women, and children, bound, gagged, and terrified.
"You go back,"
Gerald said, voice firm.
"This is beyond a few rats and ghouls. We'll handle this."
But Marcus and I knew better. That hesitation in his voice, he knew without any help, it meant death for his men. But as a truly honorable man, he had a duty to the city. Those men were real heroes, and in comparison, we were a joke.
"We can't leave them,"
Marcus growled, his fingers curling into fists. Eliana folded her arms.
We'd have to use you-know-what. And they aren't fiends, they're undead. I have no obligations here. It's better we run and get help, hoping some make it.
Sir Thorn scoffed.
And there's no money in saving them. We have enough gold to silver some weapons now, anyway.
I swallowed hard. I should have walked away. Should have done what I always did. Survive. But something inside me twisted, screaming at me to act. Katrina whispered,
They will see you, Banjo. Your magic, your secret. This isn't like your group, where you got lucky they were also magic users. These men are like your platoon I slaughtered years ago, and they will turn you in when you use your power.
I tightened my grip on her hilt. Sir Thorn saw it first, the shift in my posture, the slow exhale as I readied my magic. He sighed, shaking his head.
Damn it. I'm taking a cut from your share for this,
he muttered. Then, before I could act, he stepped forward and cast a spell. The guards tensed. Magic was illegal, and yet they did not draw their blades at him. Gerald looked at us, then at the storm giant, and then back at his men.
"If we fight together,"
he declared.
"You aren't registered with the Custodia, but I won't let bureaucracy stop us now.
No turning back now. United, we charged into the fray, determined to save the captives and put an end to this horror before it could spread further.
Open fire!
Captain Gerald's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Gregor, Noah, and Davy raised their rifles, the thunderous cracks of gunfire tearing through the cavernous dock. The first wave of ghouls crumpled to the wooden planks, their rotten flesh unable to withstand the onslaught. With a practiced motion, the guards dropped their guns and drew their swords, rushing forward. Sir Thorn dashed ahead, his red bandana fluttering as his eyes shimmered with magic. His blade gleamed unnaturally as he invoked a true strike spell, then slashed a ghoul clean in half. The creature let out a gurgled cry before collapsing. I followed suit, charging electricity into my hands, the familiar tingle of power spreading through my fingers. With a fierce grin, I grabbed a ghoul and sent a jolt through its body. It convulsed violently before collapsing in a smoking heap. Eliana stood further back, her piercing blue eyes locked onto the shack. She uncorked a flask and downed the liquor within. The moment it hit her system, she muttered an incantation, a wave of heat rippling from her body. The shack's wooden door burst into flames, crumbling to ash. Then her wild magic surged, and the ashes shimmered and disappeared. The hostages inside gawked at the seemingly intact door, frozen in confusion until Eliana stepped in and ushered them out.
Never mind the door. Quickly, this way.
Meanwhile, Marcus smashed through a wooden wall, grabbing one of the ghouls on the other side. With an effortless motion, he crushed the creature's skull in his grip. More ghouls rushed him, but they were merely obstacles in his path, their bodies tossed aside like ragdolls. I turned just in time to see a ghoul lunging for a child. I sprinted, but I was too slow. The ghoul raised its gun and fired. The child dropped dead in front of my very eyes. Rage bubbled inside me as I swung Katrina, slicing the ghoul in half. The sword hummed with a twisted satisfaction, but I ignored it. No time to dwell on it. Let her be happy if it means I get justice. Eliana moved forward after the hostages managed to flee, leveling her pistol at a ghoul. Before she could fire, a massive shadow flickered behind her. Then it was there. The undead storm giant teleported directly behind her, its rotten face contorted into an eerie grin. A club, slick with venom, swung down. Before any of us could react, it smashed into Eliana. She stiffened instantly, paralyzed by the venom. Who knows how much worse it would be if she wasn't wearing that armor. Sir Thorn's blade ignited as he cut down another ghoul, but not before the creature sank its rotting teeth into his arm. He grimaced as the wound blackened with the first signs of ghoul rot. The infection was spreading fast, but Thorn wasn't one to falter in battle. The guards turned their attention to the storm giant. Swords flashed as they stabbed into the massive creature's legs, but it barely seemed to notice. I gritted my teeth and raised Katrina, aiming for a deep slash across its side. The blade cut through, but the damage was shallow. I cursed at her because this wasn't just my doing. She wasn't up for the work needed to kill this storm giant. Katrina's voice slithered into my mind.
Eliana's an easy kill right now. Take her instead.
Shut up, I hissed. The storm giant growled and kicked Eliana's paralyzed body toward the ship. She crashed into the deck, unmoving. A lone ghoul scrambled up the gangplank, dragging her inside. Then, without warning, the storm giant leapt into the water, seeking escape. "Now!" Gerald shouted. We attacked all at once. Swords, fire, and gunfire tore into its flesh, the cavern ringing with the sounds of battle. The beast was on its last legs. Katrina shrieked in my mind.
That giant will get away with my kill. Throw me! Now!
I didn't hesitate. With all my strength, I hurled the sword. Katrina spun through the air, embedding herself into the storm giant's skull. A horrible wail echoed through the harbor as the blade drank deep, siphoning its soul. The storm giant's body convulsed, then fell still into the water. The last ghoul, seeing the battle lost, fled into the shadows, leaving Eliana behind. We had won the battle, but as the dust settled, we looked at the guards with unease. Our secret exposed. Will they turn on us? Deep down, we all secretly prepared for another battle.